thank you for staying with us and coming back into these sessions. And see the numbers are getting higher, so let's wait a couple of minutes before we fully launch into the final panel of the day. I know it's been a very full day, and it has really been rewarding to see the number of people actively participating throughout the day. We really hope that in these final minutes we can impart a little wisdom that will take you beyond this day and into the future, and realize our goal of this being a launching pad for major change in Massachusetts and change throughout the United States. And since we've had Canada and England and Australia involved, perhaps the world. So the numbers seem to have leveled off. Let me get started. What we're going to do in this session is we're going to hear briefly from each of the sponsors of this great event today. Let me just kind of run through who is here. We have Leslie from the Federation for Children with Special Needs, Dina Trinallo from TASH New England, Maureen Gallagher from the Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress, Mary Viano from PPAL, Janine Solomon from MAC, Stephanie Krantz from DLC, and I'm Tim Sindelar from EdLaw. So let's start with Leslie of the Federation, if we could. And again, what we want to impart upon you is how each of these organizations is working on this issue and thoughts for that you can take with you into your work. Leslie?
Thank you, Tim. The Federation is really very proud to sponsor this event. It has been an amazing day. I really loved hearing from, parents in the morning who really are making change in our world, and just very inspiring. For those who don't know us, the Federation is a nonprofit working statewide. We are federally funded and some state funding, private funding, but we are the Parent Training and Information Center in the state. And so we are that free resource. We have an information center, and I encourage families and educators, professionals to call us, to reach out if you have questions and get answers to your questions. We are also the statewide Family Engagement Center, and family engagement informs all of our work. And we believe that when families and schools work together, students have better outcomes. That's what the research says. And we really encourage that collaborative effort, that partnership to make change, to create those better outcomes. At the Federation, we really believe, to provide that safe and supportive environment in schools so that all children can learn. And so we advocate for, doing away with timeout rooms, because when students are not in the classroom, they're not learning. And we're really concerned about, the trauma that can result from excluding students and moving students away from a learning environment. I was just amazed today by the conversation, and I think some takeaways that I see is that we really need to build a better understanding within our school systems around trauma-informed practices. What can we be doing to promote professional development? And I really believe, that collaboration between families and schools, learning together to talk about what we're doing and what the best practices would be. I also feel that we need to collect accurate data. Data is what schools speak and our systems speak. And if we don't have the correct data, accurate data, we're not going to see how this is working. It's for informed decision making. And we saw some data where they tracked usage and maybe amount of time in the rooms, but it showed that educators were still preventing students from exiting these spaces. So I'm an advocate for not having the spaces at all, but we need to track data. We really do. I think that data will show that we have challenges ahead and we need to address those challenges. And the last thing is I work a lot with families and family groups, and I see parents coming together, from all varieties. So our special education parent advisory councils and our English language parent advisory councils are formal bodies that are advisors to the school district, but they should be joining with our PTOs and other families to come forward, to ask questions, to look at the data, to drive questioning in different environments, visit the schools, see what these rooms look like, be informed, and to start the conversation. I really think parents can be effective in this kind of change and the change of mindset. We are the taxpayers, we are the funders of education, and we should have a say in it. So I encourage parents to step forward. So thank you very much, and congratulations, everyone. It was a great day.
Thank you, Leslie. I really appreciate this. So just moving down the list that appears on my screen, I'm going to go to Dina.
Great, thank you. I'm Dina Trinello, and TASH, which hopefully a lot of you know about, but if not, it's www.tash.org. And TASH has been around since 1975 and really is the major advocacy group for individuals with more significant disabilities, and really fights for inclusive opportunities throughout the lifespan. My work is more in education, so that's where I focus, but there's a variety of researchers and self-advocates and people involved in policy, a huge network. So I really encourage people to become familiar with TASH and see what's out there for when we say inclusion, we're really talking about all people, not just some people, but all people. I want to spend one other thing I'll say about TASH, and I am the co-president of TASH New England. There's a lot of chapters. So whatever state you're from, you should be able to find a chapter. And obviously people with more significant needs have disproportionately been affected by so much of what we talked about today. And I think that's really been obvious. What I'd like to spend a couple of minutes, my remaining few minutes, is really summarizing what I heard today and what it's always, I've been working around behavior support for several decades now, and I've done a lot of professional development and also have taught at the university level. And so much of what I heard really echoed. It's always nice to hear people talking about what you so believe in. It's sort of the core of approaching or conceptualizing behavior challenges. And so much of it begins there. And I think, Guy's initial presentation really underscored that, along with all the other presentations I heard. From Guy starting us off with the 3 R's. And of course, we're all wondering, well, what are those going to be? And it's relationships, 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 which is the cornerstone of you're not going to get anywhere in schools if you don't establish a relationship, a trusting relationship with your students. And again, I'm sort of wearing my educator hat at the moment. The other pieces that really stuck with me throughout the day is, I think about this a lot, again, how one conceptualizes behavior. And I think that when I've done professional development with teachers or with educators, I always look at them and say, all right, how many of you went into the work so that you could yell at children, so you could punish children, so that you can put them in timeout spaces? And of course, they all like, oh my God, no, that's the last thing I want to do. And so I think we also need to think about that. Kids don't wake up thinking, how am I going to terrorize my teachers? Let me count the ways, right? That theme came out loud and clear, along with that families are doing the best they can. And so often it feels like they're being blamed for their child's difficulties. So I think we really need to think first and foremost about that, that people are giving you the best they've got. at the moment. And our work is to work with people so they really can give you their best and feel good about what they're doing and their contributions. I think the other piece that came out for me loud and clear was that this work is so much more about adults than the students. We're always quick to blame. Who's to blame for a behavioral challenge or something that, we're all like not sure what to do with. And the work is just, it's really the adults that need to think about where they're at. And a lot of the presentations I heard today were really focused on sort of managing. One has to manage their own behavior, and adults need to do that loud and clear. I think in terms of, and Tim, if I'm going over, just stop me, because obviously that's always what happens to me. Time management has been continued to be my, okay, 2 minutes? Okay, great. Okay. I think that, when we're thinking about behavioral challenges, and obviously functional behavioral assessments are important, and positive behavior support plans are important, and that's a lot of the work I do is in positive behavior support. That behavior, and I think Dr. Kresnian really spoke to this as well, that behavior doesn't occur in a vacuum, that we can often really look at a student over time and pretty quickly figure out what triggers that student. And if we don't focus on that, we're not going to get anywhere. So that prevention is so much the key. And I've seen so many behavior plans in the past where they were full of responses. If the kid does this, this is what you do. If the kid does that, this is what you do. And really the strategies should be 90% on preventing the challenges in the first place. And again, that came out loud and clear, I think, throughout the day. And I think that's, oh my God, I know I had more to say. Again, people talked a lot about a climate and promoting a positive climate. And that's, you can walk into a school and feel that immediately. If this is a place that you want to be, you want your kids to be. And I don't care if it's in a rundown school in Boston or some very sophisticated, suburban town that's, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can walk in and you can feel that climate, and you can feel the culture. And I think we need to really think about how important all of that is. So I think I'll end by saying that the focus is on teaching skills. That came out again through a variety of the presentations, that kids do well if they can. That was a quote. I'm not sure who said that, but somebody along this very long day said that. And I've probably been saying that, in all the presentations.
I think it's Dr. Ross Green.
No, I didn't hear his presentation. So maybe it was the Think Kids folks.
Yeah.
But
no.
Yeah, all of these things, these are sort of the basics. And if we really think and embrace and let the basics guide what we do, less is more. We will be much better off. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Gina. Thanks for Tash. Maureen, could you tell us a little bit about the work of Down Syndrome Congress? Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I agree. It was such an amazing day today. It was extremely rewarding to see so many different people coming together around such an important issue, family members, disability advocacy organizations, educators, schools, and really experts from all over the country. So I first got involved in this issue when our dear friend Emily Lamarcker, who's a member of the MDSC, came to us with the heart-wrenching story about her beautiful son, Cole, who was only 10 years old. And as many of you heard her story this morning. As the statewide advocacy organization for individuals with Down syndrome and their families, we felt right away that we needed to, help Emily figure out next steps, figure out how we could support her on a personal level, but also work with her because of her passion to not only want to make a difference for Cole, but to make a difference for so many other families across the country. And so she's now become our our national spokesperson, just incredibly proud of her. You know, we've worked with many different like-minded organizations like Mass Advocates for Children, the Disability Law Center. We've met with the Office of the Child Advocate, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And so all along the way, with Emily on this journey, we have, you know, learned that really families need to come forward. They're the spokespersons. Their loved ones often can't speak up for themselves. So just, you know, saying how important it is for families to continue to speak up, and for educators. We have heard stories where, you know, maybe a paraprofessional or someone else in the school witnessed something. And so really, if you see something, say something, because I know Emily, the trauma that her son experienced happened really after many, many incidences had been going on at school that she wasn't even aware of. So I think it's a call to action for all of us, not only to work toward these best practices, but to, you know, really support families and to, you know, help them advocate for their sons and daughters. One of the themes that I keep hearing is, you know, the collaboration and the partnership with schools. And MDSC works every year through our Center on Inclusive Education with schools. We have an educators forum, and we bring together educators, usually around 300 from around Massachusetts and around New England, that come together to share best practices. So this should really be on the agenda of those, you know, educator forums like the MDSC has, so that people hear about this and that they really learn that there is another way, that maybe things that we learned years ago, we now have the research and the data to say that this is not the right way, and to be strong enough to be able to embrace new practices. And I'm really thrilled that our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has been very opening to listening and hearing and advocating, and now making funding available here in Massachusetts. And I'm hoping other states do this as well, so that school systems can apply for grants to help retrain their teachers and bring some of the experts that are here today to their schools, so that people really, you know, have the tools to embrace these new practices. Because I know what we hear from educators a lot is that they're really looking for practical, helpful information. That, you know, they know what the challenges are, but they don't always necessarily have the tools and the support within their systems to put them into practice. So we need to make sure that you know, the schools do have that training and that information. So I think that's, you know, my main message is just, you know, the advocacy. I know, you know, we also have a very large legislative area in the MDSC where we focus on state and federal legislation. I know sometimes it takes way too long, but encouraging families as well as other service providers and people who care about our community to talk to your legislators and your state leaders, and, you know, help them, you know, rework legislations, get on advisory committees. There is a federal law that has been reintroduced in 1983, which many of you are probably familiar with, the Keeping All Students Safe Act, which we've been very supportive of, and I know a lot of our national partners are. So, I mean, we have to keep that steady drumbeat of educating others, sharing our stories, and bringing these best practices to those who can hopefully really, you know, change the future for our loved ones.
Thank you very much, Marina. We're really pleased to have MSDC as a partner in this project and look forward to work with you in the future. Let me turn to Mary in PPEL. Mary?
Yes, hi, thank you. Really excited again to be here and honored to be sponsoring this event as well. PAL is the family organization in Massachusetts that really specifically supports children's mental health work, both on behalf of children, youth, and families, often kind of across disabilities, right? Mental health and trauma exists in many. So we're there really, and we show up for all families and also collaborate with professionals. Similar to both the Federation and Mass Down Syndrome Group, right? We're free. We support all families that connect to the work that we do, which I think is really important as well. A few things that come up with what we're seeing and just want to kind of bring up of what's been talked about today. The amount of stress and the stress response that families are under right now is just a magnitude of what's going on. I'm not taking it away from the professionals that are supporting families, but the stress response and how we show up is really key in what we're seeing. It would not be like me not to mention that the most vulnerable of populations across that have mental health and other disabilities or abilities continue to be the people that are harmed by this. And I want to say it's not just harm, it's abusive. And within what we're doing in that, we've really got to look at what we're going to do as a collective group, and PAL is there to stop the abuse, to stop the isolation, and really know that all people matter. We've got to start looking at a lens, and what our young people have taught us at PAL is looking at what's helpful and what's harmful. Young people are being harmed, and that needs to stop. Another piece that comes up, and I'm glad Dina had mentioned the 3 R's, because that really stuck out, and I'm going to kind of quote Guy as well in that relationship. The trust and the interaction of how we're interacting with families, the pace has to slow down. Everyone is fast in making decisions that is not the most helpful for the young people that are challenged. I will also say that one thing within PAL that we're really looking at, kind of in our question of the month, is it's the equality that's happening in what's being available to young people and families that are Black and brown. If English is not your first language, and are you having children that are evaluated on time and the first time someone recognizes a challenge with a young person? We have been talking about this for a long time. It is getting worse, not better, and we have to do better. The last thing that I will say is that we do believe with others on this sponsorship of this amazing event that families and parents are partners. Collaboration and partnership is key, and we need people to come together, and we need people to activate now. We do also know that parents need information, and many of us on screen, but PAL specifically, I will say, we want families to be informed on all policies, and I hope they never need to know what the rights are on restraint and seclusion, but if we don't inform people, we don't know. So how to file complaints, how to file that next level, right, of understanding what's there. I also want to throw in that behavioral issues, PAL really wants to get away from the term behavioral, right? It's blaming, it's shaming, and we're not looking at the function of the behaviors. We're putting a label on young people, and that has to shift to really think and do something differently there. 2 things that I'll quickly say and then kind of pass it back over to you, Tim. Systemic trauma is a challenge for families. Being involved in multitudes of different systems isn't helpful. It's the right service that's needed for the family that's there, not a multitude of things that are not helpful. So what can we do also around that? And the discipline component that's happening, I agree with Leslie. We need to have students and young people be able to stay in schools. We can't push them out where they need to get another crisis eval, because it's another crisis eval and it's not helpful. What are we doing to look at the disciplinary issues? And also, it is eye-opening to see the amount of felony charges on our young people across disabilities. Is unacceptable to push kids to court and not to help in treatment. We know that suicide rates are going up. It's a second leading cause in Massachusetts for 10-year-olds to 18-year-olds. It's unacceptable. We've got to talk about it and we've got to stop it. And then the last thing that I will say is I think the opportunity to eliminating and stopping restraint and seclusions gives an opportunity to train people well, have a place of healing, have a place of connection, and finally in Massachusetts have a place of accountability. So I look forward to our next steps together.
Thank you very much, Mary. Very powerful. Again, a real pleasure to have you here. I'm pleased to turn this over to Janine. it's really great working with Janine and Stephanie. We both worked at Display. We won't even say how long ago it was we worked together at DLC. It's much too long ago, but we've been effective partners for a long time. Massachusetts Advocates for Children has been a leader in every aspect of education and care for students. And so it's a pleasure to have you as a partner in this, and turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Tim. And also thank you so much to you and to Stephanie and all the years, as you said, that we've been working side by side with you and many others that are here. We're very grateful to be a partner today in this wonderful conference. And I'll just say a few things about MAC and then just wrap things up maybe as we get closer to the end so we could take some questions. But I am Janine Solomon. I'm a staff attorney at Massachusetts Advocates for Children. For those who don't know us, MAC is a statewide nonprofit child advocacy organization. We work with students and with families and in communities, both at the individual and the systemic levels, to remove barriers to education for children in Massachusetts. Our mission is striving to transform school cultures to be inclusive, safe, and supportive, and create systemic change so that all youth can learn, reach their potential, and thrive. And we heard a lot about that today, about keeping kids in school and learning. We focus our advocacy at MAC on children and youth who face significant barriers, inequities, and/or discrimination because of their economic status, their disability, their race, ethnicity and culture, immigration status, English learner status, and/or traumatic life experiences. I think one important thing about MAC to highlight, I didn't know if we were going to be doing slides, and hopefully you all will provide our information, but we have a free statewide multilingual helpline. And we get thousands upon thousands of calls every year. The numbers have only increased. I know our helpline coordinator, Laura Perez, has joined us today. She's really been the source of getting our helpline. We are as quickly as responsive as we can be to our callers. And as I said, we field a lot of calls each year, but we are here for people. Our number, I'll just say it out loud, but it'll probably be available, is 617-357-8431. And as I always say, that's really the entry point for families to get to us. It allows us to be able to call back. And as I said, if the family has language needs for a language other than English, we're calling them back with interpreters, and we also have materials that are translated on our website as well. But we provide information, resources, referrals. We work with so many people that are on this panel, as well as other people that were in attendance today. It really struck me, as it always does. It does take a village. It takes a lot of us working together and collaboratively. And as Tim was saying before, a lot of MAC's work is not only at the direct level, but we're also working in providing trainings to families, trainings to attorneys. You know, we have a big mass of attorneys that we work with, both those that are in legal services, but also our pro bono partners, and as well as our statewide and our other partners such as EdLaw. We do this all together, and I just was really impressed with the wealth of knowledge and the information, and to see how people are coming together. I am very grateful, especially for folks that are on this panel. I think Liza joined back up again. She did incredible work with Tim and Stephanie and others, and many people again that have brought this to where we are right now. And the fact people have said that we've DESE has now put out these grants. We're making great strides and we'll get there. So I'm just, again, very grateful to be here. We're available to families and we certainly will connect people and be a partner as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Janine. Stephanie, do you want to add a few things?
Sure, I will just add a couple of things. I'll give just a little clip about Disability Law Center, a little clip about how we got to where we are today, and then a few recommendations or goals of the Disability Law Center. So, as I said this morning, I'm a senior attorney at the Disability Law Center, and the Disability Law Center is the protection and advocacy organization. Every state, there's a federal law that said every state needs to have a disability rights organization. It's a private nonprofit, and we are the Massachusetts P&A. Our core function is really abuse and neglect and monitoring and investigating places where people with disabilities are. So that includes, and what we're talking about today, that includes schools. And we have unique authority that gives us access to places, so we can go on site. Just a very quick how we got here. Back in 2020, we were doing statewide monitoring of schools around timeout rooms because we had multiple calls regarding trauma that kids were experiencing by being placed in timeout rooms. So we went a number of schools and then realized the systemic nature of the problem, that this was really not something that we could resolve by handling a couple of cases, that it was a statewide issue where children were traumatized by the experience of being put in timeout rooms. And a theme really emerged of the students' trauma, and including school phobias and fears of closed rooms, interfering with the learning process, mental health issues, and we heard more about this from Emily this morning, and really heartbreaking stories. So DLC at that point began working systemically to change these practices and provide, the goal being to provide teachers and administrators with tools they need to move away and eliminate the use of timeout rooms. As I said at the beginning of the day, these changes don't only benefit students. It's a great benefit to students, but it also is very traumatizing for teachers and school administration to be working with these practices that are so trauma provoking. And at this point, there is a lot of momentum, and that's why I'm so thrilled with the outcome of what happened today, because there's a lot of momentum, both on the state level and on the federal level, to really change these practices. We are going through very difficult times overall, and families and students are facing so much, and that it really is important to move away. And I know the advisory and the DESE grants have all been talked about today, but they, I think, really show the progress in Massachusetts on what's happening. So just very quickly, I have a couple of goals. DLC, really one major goal that DLC is to increase grant money so that all schools can get the training that they need to make these changes and move away from these practices. And one thing I'll just say in response to what Mary said in terms of restraints and crisis calls, the Department of Justice spoke this morning and said that not only were there not an increase when they eliminated the use of timeout rooms in those other areas, but that there was a decrease in restraints and crisis calls. Number two, Disability Law Center's goal is to have regulations formally released that would eliminate this practice and make these shifts. Number three, that was already talked about, is really data collection, but my focus is really data collection to document the positive impact that these changes make. So collecting the data from the schools that are receiving the training to document and show proof that we're moving away from those practices, eliminating trauma, increasing time in learning environments, improving teacher morale and retention, fewer student and staff injuries, and reduced restraint and crisis calls. I'm committed to continuing this work. We'll definitely see this through. And now more than ever, so many challenges and stressors, the time is right to move forward to protect the emotional health of students in Massachusetts. Today really provided a map for moving forward and making it possible. So I would offer anyone to reach out. It will take collaboration and from all of us to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. So I get the honor, I guess, of trying to wrap up things. I'll try and be really brief. I can't believe that we've kept more than 65 people here on a Friday afternoon past 4:30. But you know me, I'm Tim Sindelar. I work at the Ed Law Project. You may not know what the Ed Law Project is, so let me take a couple sentences to explain that the Ed Law Project was started in 2001 by a group of public defenders who saw young kids coming through this criminal justice system and the delinquency system, and seeing that one of the primary factors affecting whether they pick up charges was what was going on in their school life. And it was a early recognition of what we all now well understand to be the school to prison pipeline. And what's a more compelling instance of that school to prison pipeline is the exclusion of students from the classroom through seclusion, through restraint, through excessive discipline. Guy Stevens talked about all these so eloquently this morning. I can't begin to say that how appreciative that is, but that is the work of the Ed Law Project, is to prevent those things from happening. So we're really pleased to be part of this effort to stop the excessive use of excluding students from their classrooms and keep them in classrooms and keep them learning and get them out of that pipeline. So what can you do? I think that's the important takeaway. Guy had several things that he said. Emily mentioned some things. The people on Liza gave you a nice outline in one of her slides of a number of different places. But to start with, you can contact any of these agencies that are here today. The six of us, we're all concerned about this, and we want to hear if you're experiencing a situation where your child's being secluded, but being locked in a room, being taken out of the classroom excessively. We want to know. So that's one thing. If you are the parent of a child with a disability, you participate in team meetings. In those team meetings, you can begin the education process around this use of seclusion, restraint, improper discipline. We gave you 12 different presenters this afternoon with very effective methodologies that don't rely upon the use of locking kids in rooms or restraining them or kicking them out of school through suspensions. And you can bring that material, start educating people. You're going to have a copy of this whole day. Use it, take it to a team meeting, show them the highlights, but start educating people at that level. Guy has a very effective strategy. He has this no consent letter. You can look at his website. And, what that means is simply you tell the school district you will not consent to your child being put in an exclusionary timeout. Is it legal? Well, we could spend a long time debating about that. Is it effective? 99% of the time. So do that. Take those steps on behalf of your own child, but then take it up a step, take it up a notch. Do what Emily did. Look at her model. Go to your school committee. Talk to your school committee about this. They may not even know that they're approving blueprints for new schools with timeout rooms, and there shouldn't be such things. We need to have a real major grassroots effort at school committees to stop that from happening. And then, obviously, as has been said here before, contact your state senators, contact your state representatives, use social media to talk to your friends and relatives about this issue, because a lot of people don't really understand what's happening. If everyone heard Emily's story, we wouldn't have to worry about doing anything. I could retire, we could all have more fun on Friday afternoons and not have to worry about these things. So we could go on and on. I think, if you go back through the day, there's some very specific notions. Just, think about that. Think about how we change things. Mary has said it, Leslie said it, Maureen has said it, Dina has said it. It's all about people working together. Separately, we're pretty ineffectively. Together, we're an army, and we're going to change this. And that one last thing, one very concrete thing. Write a letter to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and tell them the practice of locking kids in rooms must stop immediately. They are going to be considering, as Stephanie mentioned, regulations at some point in the future. And if they get 50 letters, if they get 66 letters from the people who are still on this webinar, it will be really educational to the Department of Education. So take those actions. Enough of preaching from the pulpit. I don't know if there's any questions. You probably all want to get out of here, but I see that there's a comment from Cassie in the chat about leaders in different states working together, and we would like to see that. Again, I think Guy Stevens' organization is a great place to begin with. Who can you talk to? Well, you can talk to all of us, but perhaps we can. I'm hoping that we gave you enough information today to understand things. But if you feel like you do need further information, reach back out to us. I'm sure that we'll be glad to come. One of the things, again, is that every town should have a special education advisory council. It can be a very effective entity. Leslie can tell you that. And those organizations can, first of all, sponsor people from DLC, from MAC, from EdLaw, from other places to come in and talk about this issue. We're glad to talk to 2 people, to 200 people. We want to get the message out, and I think we can effectively build on that. So, unless there's something else. No? Well, okay. Get your keyboards fired up. I want to see some letters out there. I want to see, you bringing this question out to your friends and relatives and the people that make policy. And we thank you for participating in this. I can't say how much I've been impressed by the participation we've had here, and we really thank you for becoming partners in this process. And with that, should we cut the recording and leave? And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye now.